Hi, my name is David Knox. I have MSA, and Baby Legs 1968 had a comment that I just had to answer for him, I believe, without going through the profile pictures. um, Here goes your answer. His question is Mayo Clinic for clinical trials, and undoubtedly Mayo uses mesenchymal, otherwise we're going to call it MSCs. I'm not going to stutter over this name. MSCs, stem cells, doesn't make sense, right? The video we're talking about. And I felt it'd be a really nice video to really answer someone specifically. And the best example I can give this is, you know, you back in the day, thousands of years ago, whatever, we killed animals for meat to live. And I'm going to get technical here, just stay with me here. But what do we do with the skin? Well, the skin is repurposed for clothes, and we got fat. Well, what do you do with the fat? Well, I mean, it could be used for food, but fat is also otherwise known as lard, is used for, we put in soap. To this day, we put it in soap. So one thing I was reading a few months ago about Parkinson's with Michael J. Fox Foundation was, if we can't stop, in that case Parkinson's, if we can't stop it, can we slow it down? Right? So if you can't stop something like cancer, can you stop the cells from even getting to that point? Can you delay Parkinson's? Can you delay cancer years and years and years, or months, or whatever? Right? Can you, even if you have MSA, Parkinson's cancer, can you slow it down so instead of having 5, 6, 7 years, you have 10, 20, 30, 40? You're probably like, oh, that makes sense. Right. So the stem cells at Mayo Clinic, they're not going for the neural replacement like I was talking about, what I was getting for. That's not what they're doing. They're going for other methods of trying to stop. And half of it is theory, hypothesis, and some of it's not. I saw this reaction over here. Let's try it on this disease and see if it works. So I pulled, just for you, baby legs, I'm not going to say that anymore. I pulled the articles from just clinical trials, the CDC and clinicaltrials.gov, and some other documents on Mayo. And here's what it says. I'm going to summarize this. I'm going to make it as painless as possible because I had to Google and translate and look up how to say some words. And I'm still going to mess these up, so stay with me here, right? So MSCs are considered to be a subtype of stem cells, okay? Unlike embryonic or induced pluripotent stem cells, what I got, right? MSCs are primarily limited to differentiating into cells of MSCs, osteocytes, fibroblasts, autophytes, and chondrocytes. Okay, so this is Mayo Clinic. Their documentation I can send to you. It's not expected that MSCs, what you're talking about, would mediate any beneficial effect by incorporating into neural networks to replace dying neurons, which may be anticipated in other neural stem cell approaches like I had. They're not going into, that clinical trial is not to try and replace the glial cells, the neural cells as dying and degrading in people with MSA. It says it right there. That's not the goal. Okay. The precise mechanism of MSCs, what you're talking about, may exert beneficial effects in the neurologic disease. Is still being elucidated, but it appears that multiple different mechanisms may result. So they're saying there might be more than one way to skin a cat, and that's probably a bad reference, but we'll keep going. First, it says MSCs have been reported to secrete neurotrophic growth factors, including glial cell-derived GDNFs, brain-derived neurotrophic factors, BDNFs, which I've spoken a few times about that, which further enhance under specific culture conditions. Neurotrophic growth factors have been found to improve neuronal survival in a number of preclinical models of neuron injury, including ALS, Parkinson's, MSA, transgenic animals, and nerve injury models. What do they test on first? Animals. Rats, cats, I don't know, usually rats, right? The mind's about the closest thing that gets over to a human brain. So they're saying, based on the the test we had with rats, MSCs might be able to improve neuronal survival, battling the condition, right? They might be able to survive longer, which would make these conditions, these tremors and things that we have with MSA not so bad, or not, the onset would be much later if they're surviving, right? Secondly, MSCs strongly modulate the immune system and can aid wound healing, and this mechanism has been exploited in disorders such as, I never heard of this, GAFVS, host disease, and Crohn's disease. So they're already working on, the disease for Crohn's with MSCs, which is working. But they're saying, hey, if it can work for Crohn's, which I think we've all heard of, Crohn's disease, maybe it might work for MSA in a different way, okay? From a neurodegenerative perspective, it has become increasingly recognized that neuroinflammation plays a major pathomechanism role. Neuroinflammation is, in this context, is defined as negative contribution of non-neuronal cells, immune cells, glial cells, MSA, to neurodegenerative diseases, right? Which, if we keep going, by the way, this is like a 400-page document. I just copied and pasted a few things I wanted to say about it. MSCs, here's the hard part. You read about going and getting mitochondrial stem cells, however you say it, I'm saying it wrong, but MSCs. You hear about these treatments and they're saying, be careful. Because MSCs can both be anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory. And pro is not the word, it's, yeah, it is actually pro-inflammatory. They can either reduce inflammation or make it worse. Be careful what you wish for. There are 5 commonly known bad side effects of stem cell treatments. This is one. One thing you don't want are your neurons and glial cells that are already breaking down to be inflamed. That's why we start to lose our brain cells, basically, I'm call brain cells, those glial cells, because the outside sheathing is stripped away. Now you have a bare nerve, kind of like a toothache, a tooth infection, bare nerve. Inflammation, so if you take an MSCs and they don't react to you properly, your situation goes from 0 to 100 quick, and now that could mean death or much worse conditions, right? It says extracellular vesicles, whatever, are packed with thousands of protein, messenger RNA, and or microRNA, many of which are enriched in EVs compared with MSCs and have been reported to enhance neuronal growth and health in model systems. A few paragraphs, a few pages, I think, talk about, and I didn't show you this on my last presentation for my stem cell treatment, but they can take your stem cells and alter these things, add to, subtract from, and put them back in your body and say, ha, we altered it's like ISPCs or something they call them, and it's artificial intelligence. They're changing the molecular structure of these stem cells, trying to make them better, more efficient, go straight here, skip all the other stuff. But that's the problem. MSCs don't go where they want you to go, not always, hardly ever. So they're trying to modify the genome and the makeup of them to say, hey, ignore this stuff, go here. Ignore Dave's broken back, go straight to his brain. That's what we need. They do these things. They try to anyway in the test. It says, and I quote, finally, an intriguing new hypothesis to explain the positive effects of MSCs is that they may improve neuronal health by donating their mitochondria. Now we're getting somewhere. Think about this. The mechanism of mitochondrial transfer has been observed between astrocytes and neurons in a stroke patient, as well as between MSCs and alveoli in a lung injury patient. So doctors saw in a lung injury in a stroke patient the transfer of mitochondria, and they're saying, wait a minute, let me finish this all, right? Through this mechanism, MSC conceivably could improve neuronal health by donating healthy mitochondria to neurons that harbor dysfunctional mitochondria. Well, if we can't replace you, we can't fix you, we'll just transform you, kind of like what's the Star Trek shapeshifter, Odo on Deep Space Nine. I'm showing my age. Right, we'll change him to her to him, and black to white, white to black. and they'll take over your roles. You're fired. Here's your replacement we just hired. Like literally, that's what they're talking about. So again, you're not wrong. Not you specifically, baby legs. See, I said it one more time. You're not wrong, or nobody listening to this is wrong by going and getting those clinical trials. It's better than nothing. It's a new treatment. I've read 20 just in this year, 20 experiments, clinical trials for Parkinson's where they're trying atypical things. They're trying thinking outside the box. We can't stop the proteins in Parkinson's and MSA, which the alpha-synuclein misfold at different spots, but if we can't stop them from misfolding, causing these diseases, can we slow it down? Can we alter it? Can we change what it does? Can we limit what it affects? That's what they're trying to do with these MSCs at the Mayo Clinic that you're talking about. They're just trying to do things outside the box. Does that make it any better or any worse than what I got done? No. No. I mean, you go to the doctor, and I tore my shoulder, and he says, I said, wow, let's fix it. It's torn. And they're like, well, let's do physical therapy first. Let's try to fix it through that, normal health deterioration, steroid shots, and yada, yada, yada. And then if it doesn't work, we'll go to surgery. There's many ways, right? I'm beating a dead horse here. There's many ways to go about fixing things and discovering things. I mean, most of our technology we have is all military before it was released to the public, like GPS and the internet and fiber optic. So, right? So it's the same thing for the medical, right? They're trying many ways to get to the same solution. And while I would rather go my route, which is straight to the neurons, if you take the time and read these articles they have, like literally you go to clinicaltrials.gov, this is, I'm not smart. I think I'm smart. I'm attentive. I pay attention. I do research. Or I try to understand what I'm reading and saying. And I just don't go to clinicaltrials.gov and read what they have, the abstract. I go down to the footnotes and I go to the scholastic articles that the doctors and universities and places have submitted as evidence or proof or whatever. That's what we got to go by. Like, anybody can quote and say, searching for a doctor or a new car, a used car, used house, new house. You got to look at just not the website, but you got to look at who's referring them. Otherwise, everybody can make a statement and say, oh, yeah, this works, or that works, or that, mine's better than yours, yours is better than mine, but who's backing them up? And you'll notice that the more articles you see about certain things, studies, you'll tell the ones that are kind of far-fetched and limited in scope because they don't have hardly any, if any, articles underneath them to support what they're talking about. And that could be a lot of good reasons too, right? It's just beginning, small time, and a little bit of money. But these ones that have a lot of things be underneath them, they're quoting a lot of documentation and resource sources, right? Those are the ones that are generally more trusted and proven. So again, MSCs is still, in my opinion, a good thing to try and do, right? My right is not your wrong. Your wrong is not my right. So, obviously we have different ways to get to the solution. And trust me, if an article came out tomorrow saying MSCs are the solution, I'm coming over, I'm joining you at clinical trials. I mean, we have to. So just, I know it takes a lot to read these things and to actually, thankfully, Google or Microsoft Word and Microsoft and all these websites can actually translate and say the words for you, so you can kind of translate and read what what we don't know, what I don't know, what you don't know. But that's something we got to do for these tests. Otherwise, you get somebody out there such as yourself. I don't mean nothing by this, but you get people out there that are like, hey, why are you doing that when they say to do this? Or all the clinical trials for this, why are you going against the grain and doing this for, right? It would lose a lot of people. It wouldn't make sense. But the more I keep reading about, all I do is read. I have videos too, but I read so much about MSA and Parkinson's. It makes sense to me at this point. I mean, those, I was talking about the three stages of the cells. I forget the name of it now, but, outside, inside, and middle parts, they all have a different protection, right? Glial cells dying in the alpha-synuclein for MSA, I don't need the whole cell to be replaced, but I need the outside covering to be replaced. So when it comes to MSCs and the three stages of those cells, I just need the outside to be if they can make the outside to recoup itself and rebuild itself over the glial cells, cool. My MSA wouldn't be like that bad, right? I still have one other issue with misfolded protein, but the glial cells would not break down. So, they're trying to find lots of ways to stop these diseases from progressing. And what you're talking about with MSCs is just one way of trying to do it. I fully 100% support it as much as I support the way I did with the other stem cells that I did. So just food for thought. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not trying to be off base. I would never call anybody wrong because you just asked a question. And it doesn't make sense if you can't find the data. And I'm telling you, it is hard to find data on a very unknown disease of MSA. It didn't actually read through the stuff. I mean, I just read through 2019, 20, 21, 22 articles, right? So it takes a while to look through these things. I mean, I know where to go at this point, so it's kind of easy for me to go there. I know where to find it, but the average Joe that's just trying to find some information and can't find none. Trust me, I understand. That's why I started a YouTube channel. Baby legs. That's why I started the channel, not to be a Mr. Know-it-all or say, hey, you're right, I'm wrong, you're right. Just to put information out there where we stand, where we're at, where we're going, right? What's out here, what's not out there, so people have an understanding of what we're up against. It's education, it's advocacy. That's all it's for. And your question makes you an advocate as well, right? You spoke up, and that's great. Like I appreciate it because now we've got a video kind of explaining as much as we can, without being doctors and scientists. So again, I thank you very much, and please ask questions all day long. I have no problem as long as I have time for it. I have no problem. So I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.